Welcome to another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast. My name is Ben Lynch. Today we have a special guest, Harvee Pene from Inspire, Life-Changing Accountants. Harvee's first business was at 12 years old, mowing neighborhood lawns. You've probably been there. 5 years later, at age 17, Harvee had saved enough and bought his first investment property. He then started his second business at 18 as a scaffolder, and 5 years later built it into a large construction, training and labour hire company. Wanting to get off the tools, Harvee started his next journey as a part-time intern in an accounting firm while he studied accounting. Over the next 5 years, he helped build a change management consulting firm, which helped over 600 accounting firms around Australia make positive impacts in their clients' lives. This company was later floated on the Australian Securities Exchange, and that's where he met Ben Walker, the founder of Inspire Chartered Accountants. And together they joined forces and now lead the award-winning team of life-changing accountants at Inspire. Harvee's a TEDx speaker and has spoken on stage alongside his business idol, Michael E. Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth. He's also the founder of Accountants for Good, a global movement that disrupts the very old-school accounting industry. Co-author of Cashed Up, the 7-step method to pull more money, time, and happiness from your business, and ambassador for Thankyou Water and B1G1. Harvee's passion for spreading the good knows no bounds. Despite Harvee's success, it hasn't always been smooth sailing for him. He was blindsided by testicular cancer, and he took this life-altering situation with his typical true grit and courage, miraculously reduced the tumour markers by 80%, 80, in 4 weeks. As a numbers person, Harvee believes that family is number one. His mission is to create a business that gives him the freedom to always put family first and to help others do the same. In doing this, his mission is to make a difference in the world be accomplished. Tune in. This is one of my favorite episodes because Harvee talks about building a business based off a design, not default, and really infusing purpose into it. I had goosebumps the whole time going through this. I hope it serves you in some capacity. Let's dive in.
This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.
Harvee, welcome to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. As we sit here virtually for this recording, I am looking at my computer, my laptop, where I have many stickers that you sent to me and gave to me. And I have what I probably believe are the two most impactful ones right on my keyboard.
Nice.
The first one says, do good, inspire others. And the other one says, family, your most important business.
Beautiful. My favorites.
I'd love to start with the do good, inspire others and what that means to you and the message you're trying to convey to businesses out there about doing good to inspire others. Tell us more.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate it. Maybe I'll start with an inspirational quote, and it's one of my favorites. And the quote goes a little bit like this, that there are two most important days of your life. One of those is the day that you're born, and the other is the day that you find out why. And I think it was Mark Twain who famously sort of penned those words. And I'm really grateful to be standing here on this day. And I feel like I don't quite have it all together, but I feel like I've got a command on what my why is and what my purpose is. And that's really starting to speak to your stickers that you referenced. But how I actually found it was part of my story. Just 2 years ago, before you and I had the privilege of meeting, bro, I actually got blindsided by cancer. And it was, for guys, anyone listening, it was the type of cancer that we especially don't want to get. It was testicular cancer. I thought I just had a bit of a rugby accident and things were a bit uncomfortable down there. But, 2 or 3 days later, I was in hospital getting the tumor removed, and kind of my whole life, figuratively crashing down before me, because I'm not sure what your experience has been, but I'd known people who'd who'd got cancer, and I know what happened to them. And I remember there was this moment, Ben, when I was sort of lying down flat and thinking, having to do this sort of reconciliation about, is this it? You know, am I 31 years old, and is the time that I've got here today, is this it? Is this where I say goodbye to my loved ones? And do I have to do this reconciliation about the time that I've been given? Was I happy with it? Would I have been happy with the impact that I've made and the things that I was able to do with my limited time? And I went through that process. I had the operation. I said no to the chemo. I ended up trying everything I could to heal naturally. And I'm so happy to be here today, full stop.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to also say that I'm cancer-free, which I'm stoked about. But I'm also happy that experience gave me the gift of finding out, or maybe even I didn't find it. Maybe I was forced in that moment to define it.
Yeah.
And for me, what came up was this articulation around the goal and the life's purpose to just do good and inspire others. And so, you know, here I am 2 years later. I've got a little baby girl, Havana, who's just about to turn 1, and she reminds me every day about how precious life is and what have you. But I kind of feel like I'm on the other side of that experience with a second chance. And so, you know, in our role as leaders, in our role as human beings, maybe in our role as husbands and wives and friends and what have you, you know, to what degree are we living true to our purpose? And, you know, every decision I attempt to make is with the best intention of living true to my articulation around doing good. And that's why I'm so inspired by the work that you do and the amazing impact that you make on the people who are listening today. And could, through my doing good, could I inspire others to perhaps follow suit and do some sort of good of their own? So that was one key lesson I learned through that whole experience. The second one was the other sticker that you saw there, is that family is your most important business. You know, as business owners, we might spend so many hours, early mornings, late nights. Every day is a bit of a different challenge. And through it all, I realized that despite all the time and energy that our businesses do consume, we never want to lose sort of sight about what's most important. And in my case, my values, my philosophies, that family is my most important business. What I've learned about you so far is we share those values. And that's why I'm so grateful to be here sharing some time with you, mate.
It is sensational to connect with, you know, someone like yourself, and in our community we definitely reflect that value. All of us are family members. We have siblings or parents, and if you have the opportunity, the privilege to have kids, sometimes you don't think it's a privilege to have kids. Often when we ask, you know, clinic owners, you know, why are you doing this? Why do you want to grow your clinic? And it eventually leads to some version of, I want to be able to spend more time with my kids or my spouse. Yeah. That is a real driving force, a real motivating factor behind why they do what they do. So I'm interested to know then, Harvee, you were forced into that situation where you had to maybe go to a deeper level to find that. Hopefully not everyone has to go through such a tumultuous experience to figure that out. I'm interested though on coming out the other side, like you said, what has that meant for you in business? So you got clear at articulating this to yourself, if nothing else. What has that meant for you in business and in life? What have you changed to action that?
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of sharing our strategy, if you want to call it that, in how we run our own accounting firm. I think there's actually quite a lot of lessons that might be able to be transferred directly across to running a clinic, because they're in essence a very similar business model. Yeah. And if you imagine that yourselves are running an accounting firm today instead of the clinics that you run, in our industry, the average age of an accounting firm owner is about 58 years old. And there's just over 12,000 other accounting firms in Australia. So in the context of competitors, we've got a lot, and I'm sure the stats for your industry as well, is that there's never been more competition than ever.
Absolutely.
And Me and my business partner, Benny, we started Inspire 5-ish years ago. We were sort of sub-30s at the time.
Yep.
And we had dropped out of other large accounting firms because we were frustrated that we were just a cog in a machine and we weren't making the impact that we set out to make as we chose this career path as accountants. And you might just replace that word accountants with physicians. Like that's what we all set out to make a difference. And so when we looked across at the rest of our competitors, we were paralyzed by the fact that every one of them they had more life experience than us. They had more technical experience. They had larger teams, larger offices, and larger mahogany boardrooms in their desks. Like it was just, and that crippled us for a while. And it sort of felt like a little bit like a competition between David and Goliath or the grey hairs versus the young guns. What we decided is that our differentiation strategy, or the only way that we could possibly stand out in this kind of sea of sameness in our industry, was through our philosophies, our unique perspective, our unique values, our why, our mission. And these were the only things that we could stand on the top of a mountain and with huge pride share with others. And we knew that no other accounting firm on the planet could ever reflect or copy or what have you those philosophies, because that's what makes humans unique, and that's what makes the diversity of humankind. Yeah. And so that's why we went about making some shifts around our business to find ways that we could start leading first with our why and our philosophy, knowing that that was our point of differentiation. And so as an example, you've got a bunch of stickers on your laptop, and I know they might just look like funky, cool things that you might stick somewhere and make you look trendy, but they're actually part of our process of materializing those philosophies. And I think if we're in the business of leadership and inspiring others and to trying to draw out our team to play life and play the game at a higher level, at some point we need to be able to address this thing called our why.
Yes.
Step one, being able to articulate it, and then step two, finding ways to, make it more and more real. So you've got stickers on your laptop as an example. Another quick example, I think about the power of a name and how we might identify ourselves. So maybe if I just want to put you on the spot, Ben, in our industry, they've got a lot of perceptions about accountants. So if I would ask you maybe the first word or two that comes to mind, if I ask you to describe a typical accountant, what comes up for you, Benny?
Yeah, a bit of an oversized suit, if I think about it. A bit of an oversized suit in the corner office with paper everywhere. It's not particularly progressive tech-wise or online. And it's reactionary service versus maybe proactive collaboration from a business side. Maybe that is the ultimate stereotype, but that's what comes to mind.
Yeah, and the one word that usually comes up when I ask that question is just boring, and I get it. And so, how could we stand out in that sea? And so, in a name, when someone hears the word accountant, they're like, oh, and that stereotypical sort of impression comes up. But what we went through the process of is we realized that we were out to change lives. That's the role of our business, and maybe the role of every clinic who's listening in. And so we changed our names from Inspire Chartered Accountants, boring, to reorientating ourselves around this idea that we're actually life-changing accountants. And we went to the degree of changing our name to that. The degree of re-educating our individual team members about identifying themselves with this badge of pride that they're life-changing accountants. But what's interesting is, why couldn't we all be life-changing podiatrists and life-changing physiotherapists and life-changing physicians? And in fact, if we're going to be here in business making an impact in 2020 and beyond, I would almost argue that if you're not life-changing, maybe your days in business are numbered. If you aren't making an impact in some way, shape, or measurable form, maybe there isn't as strong a future as there was in the past. So you asked the question about how do we start sort of rolling this out within the team. There's a couple of examples of shifts that we made around reorientating ourselves around our bigger purpose and reason for being.
Yeah. it's something that's quite interesting because when we do speak with a lot of clinic owners, they may have in one period identified some core values. Usually they did it themselves, off on a weekend. They discovered their core values and then try and bring that to their team, or they try and articulate their core purpose. And often, not always, but often people say, yeah, I did that exercise once and, nothing ever stuck. It kind of was a nice idea, but the reality of business kind of smacked me in the face and we had to just keep going. And we're not really living true to those each day. So no doubt this is something you were aware of and you've navigated through. What are some of the key principles or things that you've done structurally to be able to attract people that resonate with that purpose, that vision that you have for your business, and then help them deliver that in the way they conduct themselves each day?
Yeah, I think the key word that you mentioned there is around attraction. And, we're talking a lot around philosophies and values and purpose. And if you were to imagine all of those sort of concepts as if we were talking about a big magnet that we're operating in our business and our lives, and what the beauty of us being able to articulate our why and our purpose is, it's kind of like having this magnet where you turn this magnet on, and the clearer you are about articulating, the stronger that force is of that magnet. And so I think the first and easiest, or maybe even it's the hardest thing we can all do, is to be that example ourselves as the leader and as the founder. Like to be a walking embodiment of the values that we want to see in our team means that we are that living, breathing example of that magnet. And, there's no more powerful example. There's only so many stickers you can create and so many plaques you can put up on the wall. But if anyone can see that every single day in Harvee's life and his business, that is an expression of our values, which are to dream big, make an impact, and remember your roots. That's our values here at Inspire. Then that is the walking showcase for how I want the rest of the team to reflect and live up to. And like that magnet, how can I perhaps attract other team members to Inspire that might resonate with those values as well? Because, people are smart nowadays. And if we've gone on this fun weekend and we wrote down these fluffy, wuffy little values and they're stuck up on the wall, but Harvey walks into the office or Ben walks into the office and does something that's in exact conflict with those values, then, what value do those values have on the wall? That they literally mean nothing. So step one is be that example in every way. The other little tweak, perhaps, that made a lot of sense for us, Ben, is if we're going to live these values ourselves, then they need to be values that where possible can make sense both in our personal lives and also so too in our business lives. So if we're in this process of trying to figure out what are our values, how would we define them, I actually think forward not to my team and my business, but actually to my own family and my role as a leader within my family. And I can't wait till I grow old, Ben, and have like hundreds of little grandchildren running around and running amok. And I'm so keen to see that legacy. But before I go, but when I ask the question, what are our values and how do I want, to people around me to be identified with, I actually answered it for my children. And so those values of dream big, make an impact, and remember your roots live true in both the family world and in the business world. So if you want a little bit of a test as to kind of how valid or appropriate or true your values are, see if they make sense with the wife, see if they make sense with your kids and your next generation. And then if they make sense in the business world, then you've got a chance of these things, being true and this magnet being the most powerful it could possibly be. That's been nice.
I love that distinction of really owning the values yourself as the leader. Then Harvey, when you've got a team that you've made this front and center, it is quite clear you've attracted them based on that. Perhaps that's part of your hiring process, your scoring process of before you bring someone on to really vet that, yep, this person reflects our values and can see and aligns with our purpose. What are some of the things that you do to maintain accountability, to keep people honest? So you mentioned there that even using them and reflecting them, if there's a conflict in behaviors, that if there's a challenging conversation, that they can be used as a filter to navigate that conversation. Are there more structural things that you do to really infuse them for the individuals as well as the group?
Yeah, definitely. I'll share sort of the 3 rhythms that we use in Inspire. One's a daily, one's a weekly, and one's a quarterly rhythm.
Yep.
The weekly one I'll start off with because it's my favorite, and it's called our weekly Thank You Circle. And we learned about it from our friends at Thankyou, the social enterprise, who 100% of the profits of the sale of their products go to ending global poverty. And what we do is every Friday, we stand around in a big circle, and we've got a team of 12 here in Brisbane, and we thank each other for the different things that we've heard or seen each other achieve throughout the week. And I know you and I have followed the philosophies of Tony Robbins for some times, and he always talks about this intersection between, I think it's the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And what we found was going on in our own practice and maybe in yours, we can get so busy during the week, ticking off boxes, pumping through clients, seeing business thing after thing after thing, and we get to the end of the week and we're like, oh. I'm technically, I'm done, but I don't want to leave this week with this sense of emptiness.
Yeah.
And so this thank you circle gives us a chance to really fill back up that tank. And, we might be thanking somebody for something as small as taking out the rubbish when they didn't need to, because that added to the environment that is Inspire. Or we might, thank Benny for the all-nighter he pulled to, figurative all-nighter he pulled to get that report done to get it across to that client. And sometimes that thank you circle might go for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and there's always there's always laughter. There's always sometimes a bit of joking around. There's always some serious moments. There's even some tears on occasion, because this is us as human beings connecting together again. And I guarantee that 90% of our sort of values are reconfirmed back in that moment, because we're acknowledging people who have dreamt big, or the opportunity when they made an impact, or when they lived true to their roots or their why. So that's one thing that I think every business could give themselves the gift of 10, 15 minutes a week just to thank each other. Nothing gets left out of that circle, and everyone leaves feeling amazing. So that's number 1. Number 2, the daily rhythm we have is a daily huddle that we call 747. Fairly familiar concept for those who have read Vern Harnish's books. But yeah, every day, 3 priorities in a circle. It takes maybe 10 minutes to do. Number 1, what are you grateful for? We're always going to start with this sense of gratitude.
Yes.
Number 2, what are your top 3 priorities for the day? And number 3, do you need a hand, or can you give a hand, so that the whole team realizes that they're not alone? How busy things can sometimes get. So there's number 2. The third rhythm is probably one of my favorites in the long run is our quarterly retreats that we run within our business. So we run our business by a rhythm of, normal business is 4 quarters, which are 3 months long. And Inspire, we do things a little bit differently, where we have 3 quarters that are 4 months long.
Okay. You're testing my math here, but...
And what it gives us is, in the 4th month of every quarter is what we call a celebration month. And so what this sort of rhythm enables us to do is, we're a high-performing team, and we're kind of like we're running out there in a sprint. And what we realize is that when you have a sprint followed by another sprint, followed by another quarterly sprint, followed by another quarterly sprint, and there's no gaps in between, what happens? You burn out. No matter how good and how successful you are, you just need a rest. And so we have a 3 months on, 1 month off, in inverted commas, rhythm. And it's that sort of, if you imagine a bit of a wave up and down, it gives us a chance to sprint when it's time to sprint, and rest when it's time to rest. And there's a bit of mechanics around how much we rest and how much we sprint. It's all those celebration months where we go off-site 2 days down the Gold Coast, and we have what we call a thinking and thanking days. We call it thinking and thanking because we reckon those are the 2 most underrated strategies that business owners employ. We don't think enough or give ourselves the freedom, time, and space to do some deep thinking. And at the same time, I don't think we thank enough and acknowledge the people and the what we've got access to in our lives. And so on these 2 days, we take everybody off site. One day is 100% focused on personal development, and the second day is 100% focused on professional development. It's within those 2 days that we get a chance to kind of really reinforce the values that we've set out to live and inspire. So there's a couple of our rhythms.
Yeah, and I love the fact that they're called rhythms as well. To get in the rhythm of things is quite common vernacular with business owners, whether it's get in the zone, get in the rhythm, feeling that flow of doing things. And what a great way to set up the year, because I completely understand myself, and a lot of clinic owners will say the same. You're just going, you're hustling, you're working hard. The next thing comes along, the next thing comes along, the next thing comes along, and you think, bloody hell, I'm just working my tail off here. When can I reset? And what I've found so interesting is when you do have that break, that time to think and thank, as you put it, you come back more often than not and go, why don't I do this more often? Because I feel a new sense of control of my diary, over my attention. I feel much more focused, in control of everything. So I love how you've really structured it. You've put it purposefully for your team as well, so that they're not going, hey, you know what? I need to change, or I need to leave because this is too much.
Absolutely. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And maybe a +1 on that strategy, Ben, just to connect a topic you and I were discussing offline before this interview, what was around holidays and rejuvenation. Yes, we have this rhythm for how we plan our business energy, but what if we will put our leadership hat on and realize that we need to protect our own energy and our family's energy too? And so what might we need to plan out in advance in order to make sure that we're our own cup is full as leaders? And so I was sharing with you, we just got back from Queenstown over the Easter break, and that was one of 12 weeks per year that I aim and that we teach with our clients, 12 weeks per year of what we call rejuvenation time.
Yes.
So that might be an international holiday, or might be camping down the coast with the kids, or it might just be at home, but you're just you're there, you've got some space and time to think.
Yeah.
12 weeks, that's a lot of time in a year. That's almost, a quarter of the damn thing. But at some point, we need to start reorientating our business around, something that we work for and we work in and that consumes us, and to, at some point in our lives, make the smart financial decisions that help sort of flip that on its head. And what can we, in advance, maybe now or maybe at the end of the year, look forward and plan out the year and say, well, when are we going to take our long weekends for the family and the school holidays and the overseas trips and even just take a long weekend, not because there's a public holiday, but because we can damn take one. And then around that, could we build out our rhythms for our team retreats, our team and business rhythms? And so, again, we're sitting here in the driver's seat of our business versus the majority who unfortunately feel like they're being ridden in business for so long. And that's not a place to come from when we want to be inspired leaders. We want to attract amazing people to work with us and make a huge impact with our clients. So 12 weeks a year, that's the goal.
Well, that I know a number of people going, there's no way I could do that. And this brings us to perhaps the how or the what, especially in the actual business that you operate and run, which is an accounting background. And I urge people to head along to Inspire's website and check out all the wonderful resources and get your hands on a copy of the book. There is a PDF version. But the book is about getting cashed up. 7 steps to pull more money, time, and happiness from your business. Perhaps this is the mechanics of allowing you to be able to have 4 to 6 to 12 weeks, whatever it is, off and really design your business purposefully. Can you share, Harvee, a little bit more about those 7 steps that you help business owners go through to be able to build that business that inspires and that can do good for them as well.
Yeah, awesome, bro. Well, maybe for context, I've been in business since I was 13. I'm 33 here today, so it gives me about sort of 20 years in the game. Yeah. And one thing I've learned, Benny, is that business is tough. And I actually saw one of my favorite quotes, what's now my favorite quote, the other day. It says, "Business is a walk in the park, Jurassic Park." And, you chuckle, I chuckle, and because we can all kind of relate to the ups and downs that is the business journey. Yeah. And there's some other stats that say that here's the state of small business right now, just so we can maybe see where we fit into the bigger picture. There's about 2.1 million businesses in Australia, more than they've ever been in history. But 90% of those businesses are small, so they can't quite break through that ceiling. Now, of those small businesses, 60% either earn under $200,000 revenue, are unprofitable, can't afford to pay themselves a decent salary, or can't afford to engage a team. And so, we chuckle at this whole, business is a walk in the park, Jurassic Park, but the truth is the majority of business owners are in that park. The other stat that really blows me away is that 3/4 of those took on debt. But they didn't take on debt to go and explore a new office or a new pathway or new technology or machinery or engage a new team member. That they took on debt to survive.
Yeah, wow.
Man, so if you're listening to this right now and you're in business, congratulations, because it is tough out there. And the fact that we're still here, we may be a bit bloodied and bruised and scratched and knocked about, but damn it, we are here.
You're a gladiator.
Yeah, we are still in the game. And so, that's why we thought it would be necessary to write this book. And what we noticed when we were working with our business clients is that business in general was characterized between big winners and great losers, and unfortunately the majority of businesses sit somewhere in between. And so what we observed was the difference between those businesses who were cashed up versus those who were cash poor was just a handful of smart financial decisions. That was it. And that's the essence of the book, cashedupbook.com, and you can download it and read it. But we sort of summarize 7 steps or 7 smart financial decisions that business owners could make. But wait a minute, what if it was actually the role of the accountant to keep business owners on track? And in fact, the word accountant comes from that root word around accountability. To keep someone as if we were a coach saying there's one more rep or one more squat or you can do it. Like that's our true role as accountants, not that brown leather jacket in the corner wearing man that we described earlier on. So there's 7 smart financial decisions. The first 3 are kind of the winners that could really help people get some momentum. Number 1 is to cut tax. Number 2 is to capture profit. And number 3 is to control cash flow. And if we can get a command or a control of these initial 3 decisions, then the rest of the 7, can fall into place around knowing it, or checking your numbers, covering your assets, actually knowing and cranking your business value, and hopefully somewhere within there, creating a bit of lifestyle for us. That's the 7 smart financial decisions of a cashed up business. But if we think about the times that we are in right now, the whole of Australia is about to come together in a couple of weeks' time to vote on, probably one of the most historic elections in history between the Liberals and Labor or whatever. Just one may come to fruition. And if we just think about that first strategy, like cut tax, what we talk about is this idea that it's impossible to get cashed up if you're giving half your profits to the tax man. And so one of the quickest wins that most business owners can get to really accelerate their cashed up journey is just to double check or get a second opinion that what they're paying to the tax man is what they're supposed to pay and not a cent more. We do a process called a look under the hood, which is a second opinion on tax. And every day we're finding thousands and thousands of dollars that needed to have paid to the tax man. And if I think about Barnaby Joyce and what's the redhead lady that she makes fish and chips apparently really well, none of these people really inspire me to think about wanting to leave them a tip. And so if there's anything we can do to find ways legally, of course, with nothing that's going to send you or me to jail, and I'm too pretty for jail. So, anything we can do, and the truth is that most business owners end up paying more than their fair share, simply as a result of kind of the reactive nature of their previous or current accountants. So
yes,
a bit of an idea that we help.
I think the great and very famous quote from Kerry Packer I think you posted it on social media recently as well, around, why should I pay you more? You're not using it very well. Something along those lines. Exactly. It's so true as well. I think those numbers you rattled off before about how many small businesses are out there, certainly in Australia, the impact that they can have if they make some smart financial decisions, like you said, not only for themselves, but to do good for others, as we started this conversation, is so exciting for us to see. And I'm interested, Harvey, in the role of mentorship in your journey as a business owner, and perhaps someone who has impacted you massively. I'm sure you've had many across your journey and still to this day, but can you elaborate on perhaps someone who's made a big impact for you and the role that's played in your evolution, becoming smarter about business, knowing what to do, and growing yourself as a business owner?
Yeah, I've been grateful to have a lot of positive influences and inspirations in my life. But the one that really comes to mind, I think, would be a gentleman by the name of Daniel Flynn. He's the founder, one of the co-founders and the managing director of that amazing organization we mentioned earlier on called Thankyou. And, I first came across Thankyou when they were just a bunch of quote-unquote kids at university with this crazy idea to start a bottled water company. And I've been able to, as one of their ambassadors and huge admirers, just sort of follow their journey all the way along. And so many points they've been able to inspire me, both Daniel in his role as a leader, but also Thankyou in their role as a business that can make the world a better place. That's the real shift that kind of went, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And so no one can see this, but behind me on my wall is one of my goals, and it's actually goals that have been put forth by the United Nations, a pretty big organization.
Yes.
And there isn't one goal, but there's 17 goals, and they're called the United Nations Goals for Sustainable Development. And kind of imagine they're like a to-do list for the world. The world has got some challenging situations that it finds itself in. One of those situations that Daniel Flynn really opened my eyes to was that there's 796 million people right now on this planet who find themselves living in extreme global poverty. And, to put some numbers to that, that's about $1.25 per day that they've got access to kind of live their life. And we had the privilege of going to Cambodia last year to see firsthand some of the families and the villages and the projects that we'd been supporting through a cool campaign that I'll share in a moment. But when you go there and you see, the world that some of our friends live in the developing lands, like there's people out there who would literally die or kill to have the life that we sometimes here in Australia may even kind of complain about, which is kind of sad. But there's big problems that the world's face, and Thankyou really, I believe, sort of forged the pathway around what role could a business have in really turning those numbers around. And the UN Global Goals creates a beautiful framework, and hopefully you'll post the video and some links in the show notes around what are the priorities that all of us as unique human beings might relate to individually. So number one on there is my priority, which is no poverty is the goal. And the goal for the United Nations is 0 people. So that's 796 million down to 0 by 2030. So that's where I'm putting my energy towards. But Ben, can I ask you a question? I know you've seen these goals before. Is there one of the 17 that really stand out to you?
Absolutely. When I saw this goal set from the UN, I was just so inspired to find one that connected and resonated with me. And it was goal number 4, which was quality education. I know the rest of the Clinic Mastery team are going through this process and finding what resonates with them, what they're inspired to contribute to in a number of different ways. But quality education, which is being able to connect kids and people around the world with the resources they need to learn and learn some basic things, what we call basic here, definitely in the world we live in Australia. So
absolutely. Yeah, just on that, I remember being in Cambodia and attending one of the courses when they were teaching the families how and why it's important to wash your hands. And I was thinking in this moment, like, wow, here we are in 2019 and people don't know this. Like, it's crazy. So I love your value of quality education. What's great about the diversity of the global goals is, there's goals up there about supporting life below water, or there's goals up there around gender equality. It means maybe for the first time, if there's someone who's here who for whatever reason just wanted to save the whales, that's cool. But then there might be someone else who's listening who's all about women's rights and what have you, and that's cool too. But now for the very first time, we've got a common framework upon which we can connect and resonate together, and that is the 17 global goals, and that's what I love about them. One of the stickers I think I sent to you was my third favorite sticker, which has the logo of the global goals, and it just says "Goal Digger."
Yeah,
and, it's a bit of a movement that I'm trying to inspire around businesses that are reorientating their business, not just around making profit. Now, I know that might sound crazy because the author of the book, Cashed Up, and accountants were all about them dollars.
Yeah.
But what if true success and true prosperity in business and in life wasn't actually about pursuing these profits? It was actually about those profits being a means or a vehicle to help us live true to our ultimate purpose. And I think one of the hacks to finding your purpose and your values is actually these 17 global goals, because it's not difficult to find your purpose. If we could easily find our purpose, we'd all be living life on purpose, and the world would be a better place. But it is not easy. Whereas these 17 goals might create a bit of a framework for us to perhaps have a new why, and maybe even a new way to be able to grow our business. Yes, maybe even grow our sort of sense of feeling good about being a human being and doing something about this world, and ultimately maybe growing, the legacy in the world that we live for our children. So, quick example of what a goal digger might do, or what any one of our listeners who are on this episode might be inspired to do, is what if we watched the Global Goals video and found one of those goals were really kind of inspiring to us, and maybe we could connect the dots on, something that happens in our business. And every time that good thing happened in our business, we could connect that to doing some good around the world. So a quick neutral example. In Brisbane, we've got a great Mexican chain called Sombreros. I'm not sure if you guys have access to it in South Australia. Absolutely love it, and it's all around Australia. It's actually a global company now, but they're really well known, not just for their great burritos, but a giving initiative called Plate for Plate. And so what that is that for every burrito you buy, they give a meal to somebody in need. It's like, wow. And if you ever go to a Sombreros, you can't not see their values and their philosophies. Like everywhere in a Sombrero store, it's all about eating to beat global hunger, and it's all about the number of meals that they've given. They're just about to tick over 30 million meals.
Wow.
It's incredible. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the benefits that was received by the founder of that organization. But 30 million meals, it's amazing. And so I thought, well, what could we do as accountants, like boring old accountants? How can we change the world? And so we were inspired by this model. And so what we came up with, and what we're really well known for, is our Day for Dollar initiative. So what I mean by that is, for every dollar of tax that we proactively save our small business clients, which is a good thing, we give a day's worth of access to food, water, health or sanitation to families in need. And so here's an example of these are my purpose, which is to see nobody wanting for things. And I'm really proud to say that as of today, we've saved our clients just under $8 million in tax and counting. which
Wow.
they use to reinvest back into growing their family and their business, which is awesome. I'm so grateful to be the guy who gets to come up here and tell everyone that message. So that's a good thing. But thanks to our Day for a Dollar initiative, it's also meant that we've given just under 8 million days of access to life-changing help to families in need in just over 16 countries as of today.
Wow. Wow, good on you. That is incredible, and for the entire team.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate it. And it's what drives us. It's what gets us out of bed every morning. It's what helps me attract an amazing team to inspire, because it's kind of like they're working for a bit more of a mission and a cause rather than just a business that's making the owner rich. Like, it's just changing the game. And but then I thought, well, what if we could, through the result of having a book like Cashed Up, what if we could get business owners, cashed up, not so they can drive Ferraris and fly private jets, but so they can do three things. They can have more, and they can live more, and they can give more. Which that's my life purpose. I'm so happy to kind of live through it. Quick common example: one of the gentlemen who introduced you and I together, his name's Ben Murphy, and he runs an amazing clinic called Cooler Health. I'd love you to jump online and have a look, and how they do things is beautiful. But what they've done is that every time I go together, get a massage there, every time I go get a correction with my chiro, anytime I maybe attend one of their workshops and events, they give me this cool little pebble. And I think it may have been inspired by Grilled, and you understand why I'm going to share this. I get this cool little pebble. I get to walk up to the wall, and there's 3 jars there. 1 jar for Cambodia, another one for, I think it's Kenya in Africa, and a 3rd jar for another country. And I get to choose where 30 days of water gets donated between these 3 countries, and it's called their Health and Happiness Project. Yeah. And so their highest value and their highest philosophy is health and happiness. Naturally, why they're in the clinic space. And they've been able to connect an amazing thing that happens in their business. Which, would you agree that more people coming through to see their physicians is a great thing?
Yeah.
To kind of connect the dots on the global goals and say, well, what if every time somebody came in, they actually unlocked health and happiness, not just for themselves, but same too for somebody else who needs it. And to me, that's beautiful. And if I had to choose between, I don't know how many clinics there are in Australia, but if there were 10,000 clinics and one of them did good, maybe they were a clinician for good or a physio for good or a chiro for good, I would take that business that does good any day over others. So, Ben, if you're listening, you do an amazing job inspiring so many.
Oh, good on you, Ben. Well, it's something that's really connected with me there, because we do hear it a lot from often people who've gone out and started their own business because they were unhappy for various reasons working for someone else. But largely they say, I felt like, I was just working to make them rich, like you said, or that it was just money driven. There was no sense of purpose. And I guess there's no guarantees of retaining some of those people, but that you're really, if I can summarize in my observation of, you're building this business by design rather than default, which is, like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing, as you said, leading to perhaps even burnout. You're really taking that time to go, how could we make this a really purpose-driven business that serves our family, serves our team, serves our clients, but also we can go above and beyond to serve communities here and abroad. I just love it. It makes it so, it gives me the warm and fuzzies, and I know there'll be some people that perhaps don't connect with doing business this way. That's okay. This is probably not the community to be a part of, but we're all about creating great places to work where you're leading inspired teams and you're doing good for them, doing good for your clients and your communities. Harvey, it's been incredibly insightful. I know you mentioned you were going to talk about a campaign. I'm not sure if you covered everything there, but if people were looking to take the next step from all the great stuff you've shared today, what is the best thing that they could do moving forward from this podcast?
Yeah, well, if you were inspired, then step one, I've done my job and lived up to our name. We've got an amazing book out there that you can grab online at cashedupbook.com, and I'd love to see you start making some more of those smart financial decisions so you can make more of an impact on your family, your team, your clients, and the world, like that would be amazing. And at the same time, if you've been inspired by some of these examples of businesses that do good on all of these levels, then I run my own podcast, which is called Inspiring Business for Good, and it showcases many of our clients who have, as a result of getting cashed up, being able to use their profits for a higher purpose, which is so cool to see. And what's amazing with the world now is that we may learn more about how to run an amazing clinic by an example from a business or an industry that is completely different to ours. And that's the beauty and diversity of entrepreneurship. So if you like this podcast and you sort of like getting inspired by other businesses doing great things, I'd recommend checking that out.
Absolutely. It's a fantastic podcast, and we got to hang out a few episodes ago on it, and we're returning the favor here, which is fantastic. We started the conversation really about, and before we started the recording, wouldn't it be great if there were more businesses that did good on many levels? It certainly gives us the warm and fuzzies to do that, and we'll put all of the relevant links and things we've discussed today in the show notes for this podcast. If there's one golden nugget, one final piece that you could give listeners here today, Harvey, what would it be?
I think I'd say I want you to inspire before you expire. We've got limited time on this planet. We never know when our time will be up, or if you're 31, you get blindsided by cancer. I'm grateful for the time that everyone spent listening to this story today, but we absolutely have no idea when this whole thing called life is going to end. And the asset that makes us truly cashed up is our time. And if we don't have that, then we have nothing. We can have all the dollars in the world, but you'd never buy yourself an extra second of time with that. And so recognizing the value of this asset, I'd love you to inspire before you expire.
What a message to leave on. Thank you so much for sharing that message today, Harvey, and to Ben as well for starting what a great movement. We really love seeing all the stuff that you do and all the impacts that you make. So thank you very much. For those of you that have listened here today, thank you so much. We really appreciate you investing your time, learning from great business people like Harvey. We'd love for you to share this podcast with a friend, a family member, a colleague, someone you think might get some value out of this. It would mean the world to us. And you'll see all the show notes over at clinicmastery.com. And we'll see you on another episode of the Grow Your Clinic podcast.
This is the Grow My Clinic podcast by Clinic Mastery, where we help you deliver amazing client experiences to grow your clinic.